Howdy folks, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another advanced tutorial episode for War in the East 2. I must say, this is the tutorial that has been requested by many of you, and I'm very glad you guys asked me about this because on one hand I was not planning to do this, and on the other hand let's say preparing this tutorial forced me to play some grand campaigns as a test to see which would be or which could be the best strategy about how to face the infamous Russian winter of 1941-1942. So, in the first part of the tutorial, I would like to give you some tips and tricks on how to prepare yourself for the winter, and in the second part, we will see, let's say, my example of how I managed to survive the winter of 1941 and 1942 on the impossible difficulty. So, first thing first. The way you make it into the first winter depends on what do you do in the golden months of Operation Barbarossa. And with golden months, I am talking about the weeks between June 22nd and October 5th, 1941. These are the very first 16 turns of the game, and what you do in the first 16 turns decides what will happen during the later turns, namely turn I think from 21, 22 until 28, 30, 32, 33, 34. So the winter months. Basically, what you want to do in the first 16 turns is to destroy as many Red Army units as you possibly can. In this example, we can have a look at the losses, and I have inflicted nearly 2.8 million of manpower losses, nearly 51,000 guns, and 13,500 armored fighting vehicles. So it's quite a lot, to be honest. And I've only suffered. Oh my god, yeah, 250 men. This is quite unique. I never had this number before. And yeah, nearly 1600 guns and almost 500 AFVs. The ratio is, of course, it's all in my favor, but let's not be tricked by this. The destruction of the Red Army allowed me to push by the end of September already along the Volkhov River, allowed me to take Leningrad in late August already. I managed to push around the Valdai Hills. I took Kalinin, as you can see here. Yeah, I took Kalinin. I even took Tula, Urel, Kursk, Kharkov, Salino, but I did not take Rostov. And the reason of why I decided to stop at the let's say at around mid-September was because in October there is the rain season, and you don't want to move your troops during the rain season. You just want to halt every operation, stand fast, dig in, fortify, and when you think you are in a good position, no, just assign some more construction battalions to your Army Corps HQs and make sure that your divisions do have at least a level 2 fortification along the front line. Ideally, you want to have a level 3 fortification in every single hex, which, I mean, you can't have it, as you can see here from the from this test. Only in some cases I had a level 3 fortification. In many others I only had a level 2, level 1, or even no fortifications at all. One additional reason of why you should not move or launch any attack after October 1941 is because during the first winter, your units will suffer much less damage if they are on hexes with a level 3 fortification. So I know it goes a bit against the let's say doctrine of the Axis, that they had to push and attack basically throughout the entire year of 1941. No, when you reach a let's say comfortable position, just stop every operation and just make sure you are repairing your railways. Make sure you have a decent logistics network behind your line. As you can see here, I have plenty of level 4 and level 3 depots here. They are mostly behind the front line. In terms of railway repair, I did, I think, a pretty good job. Things can be improved, but at least I have the double tracked railway lines here completely repaired and almost completely operational. So forts level 3, depots, logistics, and also importantly, make sure you redistribute your support units. Ideally, you want to have at least 1 or 2 construction battalions in every Army Corps HQ. One last thing to talk about is the fate of your panzer divisions. Many people, when playing ideally multiplayer or even single player, like in my case, they play with open theater boxes. Yeah, exactly. They play with open theater boxes, and what they do is to send to the Western Europe their panzer divisions, and then they bring to the map the infantry divisions. They swap armor for infantry. I like to play with a more let's say historical approach, and I find this quite gamey, to be honest. And so what I will show you is how to handle the front line while keeping your panzers still on the Eastern Front. I know this is more difficult because in terms of reinforcements and replacements, armored fighting vehicles are, let's say, consuming much more freight than, of course, normal light infantry or guns, which means that it's much more difficult to replenish your panzer divisions if they remain on the Eastern Front. On the other hand, by sending your panzers into the Western Europe theater box, they will shed all their vehicles, and of course, when you bring them back to the map, they should be sitting around Berlin for, let's say, a turn or two to make sure that they will replenish their vehicle stock. Additionally, one way to prevent losses of your armored fighting vehicles is just to load your panzer divisions onto trains and just leave them onto trains, because due to the in-game mechanics, when a unit is, let's say, entrained or loaded onto trains, it will not suffer any attritional loss, basically. So yeah, you can kind of exploit by just loading, parking your units onto a level 2 railroad, exactly, and then just leave them there sitting basically on train cars. And yeah, talking about the units on the map besides your panzer divisions, one thing that you should avoid doing, at least against the AI, but even more importantly against any human player, of course, is the so-called regimentalization of your units. The regimentalization means just by splitting your units into regiments and park your units into, let's say, these, for instance, in these 3 hexes. Against the AI, this is not recommended because, let's say, let's assume that I would. Oh crap! I am the air phase. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I was saying, if you leave, let's say, your units here, like in this position here, you have a gap now in your lines. I know that some of you may say, oh, but here you have the zone of control effect, which will make the enemy invest more movement points when crossing these hexes, for instance. No, just don't do it, because at least against the AI, and especially in the hard and impossible difficulties, the AI will not care about this gap and the extra movement points it has to pay to squeeze your units, I mean its units, inside this gap. So never leave gaps here, and always try to have a full infantry division along the entire front line. The regimentalization is, let's say, bad against the AI, because the AI, let's say, it likes to attack hexes with just 2 regiments, and we will see soon that this can cause some problems sometimes. And yeah, so I think these were all the tips and tricks that I had to give you. Of course, this was done using the canonical Grand campaign, the official one, not any customized scenario. Yeah. And yeah, also, as you can see here, for instance, I had I did create some fortified zones just to fill the gaps. And yeah, this hex is particularly vulnerable to enemy counterattacks, because I only have 1 regiment and 1, I would say, battalion, or yeah, 1 reinforced battalion, which is kind of the strength of this fortified zone. So let's quickly go to, I think, turn number 20, which should be November 2nd, which was the first turn in which the Soviets began their winter counteroffensive. And of course, I was wrong. The first turn was turn 21, November 2nd, in which the Soviets began finally their winter counteroffensive. And while in the north, I managed to hold the ground. And yeah, as I said, this hex here, this one here, but in this case, this one here was the one being targeted by the Soviets, and the enemy managed to reduce by 1 level my fortifications, but yet my regiment and my fortified zones stood their ground. Here, nothing. Here, nothing. I mean, this highlights why you need level 3 fortifications. And yeah, by the way, this was done on the impossible difficulty, just to highlight, let's say, the difficulty. Here, this was quite a heavy engagement, I must say. The 13th Panzer Division, okay, it lost its fortification, but most importantly, it lost 28 armored fighting vehicles, which was a big loss for me in the first attack. In the second attack, it lost 12, so a total of 40 armored fighting vehicles. It's almost 1/3 of the 1/4 of the entire strength. So it was quite a big loss for me. Here, north west of Kharkov, yeah, everything held. What did not hold, okay, here the Romanians held, but they did not hold here. Here had 2 infantry Romanian infantry divisions that on the first attack they were forced to retreat, and on the second attack they were actually routed. And yeah, these guys are now here, completely depleted. They have basically nothing left, and they are out of combat. And here again, the 132nd Infantry Division just stood its ground against the Soviet attackers. November 30th, turn 24, this was the second turn in which the Soviets massively attacked my positions along the entire front line. Again, in the north, the 121st Infantry Division held its positions without suffering any reduction in the fortification levels. The troops of the 16th Army again stood their ground without suffering too many losses. As you can see here, just 42 men and 1 gun, for instance. Again, nothing, and still level 2 fortification here that held. Here, exactly, this was what I was talking just a few seconds ago, basically. The presence of 1 regiment only and 1 fortified region was not enough to, let's say, hold the ground against the overwhelming Soviet forces. They only had 3 rifle divisions, but plenty of support units, and these were sufficient to bring to 0 the fortifications and to force my regiment into retreat. Somewhere else, the Soviets tried again, and they could not displace my men. As you can see here, I just lost 3 men and no guns versus nearly 3,025 guns. You see that there is no Luftwaffe because I've set the Luftwaffe to rest. All of my AOGs are now resting to prevent unnecessary losses. And again, now the AI tried again this time against the 14th Panzer Division, and unlike the 13th, I only lost 2 armored fighting vehicles versus I would say almost all of the enemy armored fighting vehicles in this attack. They tried again northwest of Kharkov without, let's say, without much success, and I was very surprised to see that the Soviets even tried to attack Kharkov itself, and at the price of 35 men and 2 guns, I inflicted all these many losses, and you can see the massive defensive bonus that urban centers do to combats, because this was the final CV. I mean, 4,000 versus 36, and I mean that's just, yeah, that's just a bit OP. And here again, the Romanians got routed. This time, the 1st Romanian Armored Division, which, despite the support of 3 support units, it could not say face the onslaught of the Red Army, and yeah, it got defeated and routed in this turn. And yeah, so for some reasons I even saw that the AI was not defending the Taman Peninsula, so I just crossed the Kerch Strait, and I said, okay, why not? Let's have a winter tour of the Taman Peninsula already. December 7th, again the Soviets attacked my lines. They attacked me in Demyansk, where they managed to inflict some losses on my fortification levels, but still the men of the 251st Infantry Division stood their ground, while further down along the line, yeah, this was, let's say, the only moment of panic that I had when I saw that the Soviets were really pushing heavily along this sector of the front line, and that they managed to break through this second hex here. Here I did join the 52nd Infantry Division to have a kind of a stopgap here, but this was an emergency, let's say, measure that was not enough, because the 52nd was too weak to withstand the onslaught of the Red Army, as well as it was the 6th Panzer Division, which again it was forced into a retreat, and as you can see, they ended up being here. Their CV is pretty low. Like, I've never seen a Panzer Division with a combat value of just 3. Interestingly though, the Soviets tried to attack me on the flank, but the 197th Infantry Division held its positions. The Soviets again also attacked Tula, which was a urban center, as you can see. They did manage to reduce by 1 level the fortifications, but again the combat value was just too much for the Soviets to inflict any significant loss on me. Again, here everything held. Everything held. This one held as well. This one held. Again held. And actually this was even stopped at, I think, 306 meters. If I'm not mistaken. This one held. Another victory for the Reich. Again, battle won. I'm quickly going through all the battles to just show you that with a level 3 fortification you can hold your ground even when you're playing on the impossible difficulty. So if this works on the impossible, it should work as well on the say non-impossible difficulty level. Here everything held. Yeah, so here you see this indicates an activation of the reserves. The 4th Mountain Division was committed into battle. I think the 4th is this one here. Yeah, exactly. The 4th was committed into battle because I had it in the reserve. Exactly, it's in the reserve status precisely, and you see here this -6%. This is like a combat penalty that occurs when a unit which does not belong to the same army corps of the attacked unit takes part into combats, and represents the difficulties of coordinating a defense, in this case, with units belonging to 2 different army corps. And as you can see, it's not that massive. It's more massive in the case of the Soviets, where they have armies, or even, in the worst case, even different fronts. Nice, this held, and twice against the Romanians. So you can see here the -50%, because they are from different army corps, different armies, and I think even different army groups, and if not even 2 different supreme commands. So you see that the penalty here was quite big. And despite this, I still managed to hold the ground in both cases. January 4th, turn 29. In this turn, the Soviets only attacked me 3 times in 2 places at the very northern edge of the front, and here because I was kind of feeling that the Soviets would try to pierce my line in this hex, because this hex can be attacked from 1 to 3 different sides. I decided to park the 61st and the 217th infantry divisions belonging to just 1 army corps, and I think my decision paid off at the end, because both divisions, let's say, stood against a 2-to-1 enemy, against an enemy that was 2-to-1 superior in manpower, almost 3-to-1 in guns, and definitely 258 to 0 superior in armored fighting vehicles. And yeah, my troops managed to hold the ground, as well as here the 121st Infantry Division that held its position against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 enemy divisions. I mean, 6-to-1, that's quite a lot. And it's even more considering that my troops managed to hold their ground. On January 11th, the Soviets again tried to attack me on the northern front, and in this case they were victorious, because the 86th Infantry Division, despite having the support of 3 pioneer battalions, it just could not withstand the combined attack coming from the first shock, the 8th and the 11th Army. In this case, the enemy was just too much. for my division, and the fortification level just dropped to 0, and my men were forced to retreat. The 93rd Infantry Division stood its ground, and again the 122nd was forced to retreat. But besides this, my front line, I would say, held pretty much intact along the entire line of contact. On January 25th, the Soviets again tried to break through my lines in the northern section of the front, the one held by the 16th Army, and in this case they were not successful, because the Polizei Infantry Division held the line, and the same can be said about the 93rd and this poor lonely regiment of the 96th Infantry Division. This attack, however, I mean, not this attack, but because I was sensing that the left flank of the 16th Army could have collapsed one turn or the other, as you can see here, I was rushing reinforcements to the 16th Army, namely the 225th Infantry Division, because I was like, if these guys fall, then I'm lost. Sure, the 16th Army did not have the command capacity, but I was, let's say, planning to shift some units here to the 5th Army Corps of the 9th Army, which still had plenty of command capacity, and yeah, my plan was just to reinforce this flank of the 16th Army. Again, this also tells you one thing: you have to be flexible, and even though it's incredibly difficult for the first winter, you have to try to keep some units in reserve, to be ready to move them around and seal any gap in your front line that might appear when the Soviets break through. As you can see here, I have the 2nd Panzer Division. Here I have the 5th one, and they are both in reserve. Here I have the 7th. Here I have the 1st. And I think that's, oh yeah, the 13th is in refit mode, and yeah, that's, I should have put the 16th as well, but I was too focused on the northern front to care about the situation in the south. On March 8th, 1942, there was not too much happening along the front line besides the usual Soviet air recon patrols, but one thing that I think I thought would have been interesting to show you was the fact that I decided to get rid of the enemy bridgehead in Novorossiysk, and because Novorossiysk can only be resupplied by sea via this one hex, I've launched several let's say in naval interdiction missions, and as you can see here, and I even managed to engage the enemy into some clashes over the skies of Novorossiysk, and my, let's say, pilots were quite successful in shooting down 68 out of 80 enemy fighters at the price of just 1, and again 9 out of 10 at the price of just 1 of my pilots, because my idea was okay, since the Soviets' counteroffensive waned down, and I think it just stopped by the end of January, I wanted to retake the initiative and wipe out the Novorossiysk bridgehead. And finally, by March 29th, after almost 4 weeks, actually yes, after 4 weeks of starvation, I decided that it was the time to get rid of the enemy bridgehead at Novorossiysk, and in one case, 2 enemy divisions were just forced to surrender. One surrendered and one managed to escape, I assume via sea convoys. and I assume by suffering heavy losses, because as you can see, they lost nearly all of their manpower, and I could conquer Novorossiysk already by the end of March 1942. And by, let's say, late March, I declared that the Soviet counteroffensive was over, since the last attack was recorded in January, and yeah, there was no major attempt from the Soviet AI to push along the front line. The weather was turning into spring. As you can see here, it was already raining in central and northern Russia, and that's why I said, okay, fine, I think I can stop my test here in regard to the winter counteroffensive. So overall, I've lost, I think, just 5, 6, maximum 7 hexes. Again, is not important to capture, to rush forward and capture as many victory points as possible. The goal is to inflict as many losses as you possibly can on the enemy before digging in and start fortifying yourself and start building up your logistics for the winter. Repair your railways, reassign your support units, especially your construction ones, and just make sure your troops are well fed and are also close to supply depots. That's it for this tutorial, folks. I know it was quite a long one, but I hope you managed to watch it until the end. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And don't run away, because I'll see you all next week with an additional non-planned advanced tutorial in which we will have a look at how the AI cheats when playing against you. But no spoilers. I'll see you all, folks, next week.